by 1930s graphic and music, it is one of the most stunning games ever made. And the purpose of it is to beat all the bosses. But which of these bosses is the best, you may sometimes ask yourself. Well, I'm going to rank them today. All the Cuphead bosses ranked, in my opinion. Number 19, Goopy Le Grande. Being so strong as the first boss you have to face on Inkwell Isle, Goopy Le Grande lives up to his name by, well, in his first phase, he'll jump around and sometimes blow at his face at you every once in a while. But then he'll pop a pill, and in his second phase, his powers have amassed to grow big and then jump at you and do a punch move every once in a while. But once you have truly proven your worth, just when you think you've killed him, he will fight you from the grave just to try and kill you. Now his powers are at its apex, behaving such as moving right to left and doing a slam move every once in a while. For this, Goopy Le Grande will take number 19. The Root Pack are a trio of 3 vegetables that consist of a potato, an onion, and a carrot. Their attacks are all fairly simple. The potato firing projectiles slowly at you from his mouth, one of which you can parry. The onion spraying tears down on you, which coincidentally also some of which you can parry, but having no other attacks. And the carrot, the only one that has more than one attack, can shoot hyper beams from his eye, third eye, and can summon carrot minions to come and attack you. I can say by far that Rumor Honeybottoms is my least favorite boss on this list. But I can't reasonably rank it lower than 17th because how it is, slightly, in my opinion, better than Goopy Le Grande and the Root Pack. Many people might disagree with this opinion because most of the late game bosses are quite spectacular and amazing. But I find Rumor Honeybottoms quite infuriating because of 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is that it is an auto-scroller, but unlike another boss called Grimm Matchstick that scrolls sideways, it is an auto-scroller that scrolls upwards. This leads to some circumstances that are unfair where you get trapped and not fun to deal with. And reason 2 is that it's not actually that interesting of a boss to play. It's quite hard, but it's not hard in the sense that has lots of attacks. Each phase only has about 1 or 2 attacks, which is the same as the Root Pack. So because of these 2 reasons, Rumor Honeybottoms will take spot 17 on this list. Number 16. Ribby and Croaks consist of 2 frogs that work together to try and beat you up. In their first phase, Croaks will blow flaming flies towards you that you must hit to destroy and will home in on you slowly. Or Ribby will shoot punches at you, rather slow, that you can parry. In their second phase, Croaks will act like a fan, while Ribby throws balls at you that will damage you. And in their final phase, they will combine together to become a slot machine, which has 3 different outcomes when you roll it, and that'll be the challenge you have to avoid and damage them with. A fun boss, also a good difficulty for early game, so they will be taking number 16. Number 15, Cagney Carnation. Cagney Carnation consists of a flower that enjoys fooling people by putting on a weak appearance. In his first phase, it consists of attacks including seeds that he'll pellet gun at you and will slowly fall from the top of the screen, and boomerangs that will come in at the top of the screen and then come back around at the bottom. And in his final phase, he will grow vines beneath the 3 platforms that you will be standing on, and you must avoid the vines that will come up on 2 of the platforms. Cagney Carnation's main great aspect is his music, being called Floral Fury, and is, in my opinion, the second best song in the game. But I can't give Cagney Carnation too much credit for that because of how most music in Cuphead is already amazing. So for this, and not having that many phases, Cagney Carnation takes number 15. Hildeberg is a jet-like lady riding a unicycle, and in her first phase, she'll use her words to attack you by yelling "ha" at you. Then she'll turn into a sheep, which rams horns at you. And then after you damage her enough, she'll go back into her first phase. She'll turn into a couple more things, and then in her final phase, she'll turn into a half moon, summoning stars and UFOs to attack you. I distinctly remember that in her last phase, that was one of the times where I knew this was going to be a great game. So for that, Hildeberg will take number 14. 13. Baroness Von Bonbon. Baroness Von Bonbon is a boss that makes you fight 3 of the 5 possible mini-bosses before you get to fight her in her candy castle. There's a gobstopper, a gumball machine, a candy corn, a waffle, and a muffin. And the worst part about this fight is that it's RNG which ones you get, and you're going to be better at some than others. So getting an S rank or an A+ rank on this boss is basically all luck. But her final phase is cool, where her giant candy castle climbs towards you, and you have to stay and avoid the peppermints it throws at you, and avoid her heads. So for that, it'll be 13. 12. Sally Stageplay. I have so little to say about Sally Stageplay that it hurts. It's a fine boss. It's good, even. It's just pretty mundane. Many attacks are the same throughout phases, and nothing really seems to get added until the third phase. And in the first phase, she'll blow kisses at you, dive at you, and throw fans at you. In her second phase, it's basically the same. And in the third phase, she'll masquerade as a god and throw big waves and lightning and meteors at you. This is the best phase, in my opinion, and you'd start getting kind of hyped for the final phase, but the final phase is a big letdown because the only obstacle, really, that you have to avoid is her umbrella. The boss does not attack. But she'll be crowning off 12 because she has some attacks in her third phase, and her music is good. 11. Captain Brinybeard. Captain Brinybeard is a sea captain that will use the sea life around him to help him. He can call animals like sharks, squid, and dogfish to his aid, and his ship will chuck cannonballs in the second phase. Then, in the final phase, the ship will throw Brinybeard off the ship and fire a giant laser while doing a couple other attacks. The final phase definitely is pretty cool and unexpected, but it's not actually super difficult once you've beaten the boss a few times. And there's a few spots that you could stand to just cheese the boss. So, for that, it'll be standing 11th place. 10. Wallybles. Wallybles is a boss that you face on the second aisle, and I would say that he is the second hardest boss on the second aisle. In his first phase, he'll chuck Yoshi eggs at you that explode into little pieces and use his head as a bullet. And then in his second phase, he'll chuck feathers at you in kind of like a bullet pattern, which the pattern isn't that hard, but once you fail on it for an hour, you choke pretty easily. Then in the third phase, he has his son Wallybles, with more Yoshi eggs circling around him, going closer and farther away from him. I hate this phase because it's so easy to get hit, and the eggs are kind of RNG dependent to where he goes. But the final phase, it does redeem itself because he is on a stretcher below you, and he chucks a bunch of stuff at you, and you get to use the bomb, the new plane weapon you just got, and it's a good introduction because he's below you. But the third and second phase aren't that strong, only having one attack. So just for that, Wallybles will be taking 10th place. 9. Beppy the Clown. Beppy the Clown is a general great boss. In his first phase, you'll be in a carnival, And he'll be riding in a bumper car while carnival ducks fly above you, which you can shoot so they cannot damage you. Then, in his second phase, he'll blow himself up into a balloon and blow balloon dogs at you, while a roller coaster comes along every about 30 seconds. This roller coaster stays throughout the entire fight and is quite a fun addition to the fight. In his third phase, he'll choose from 2 horses, a golden one, which will throw horseshoes over the entire screen except about 1/5 of it, and you must stand in that 1/5 to not get hit. Or the green horse, which will throw 2 or 3 horseshoes on expert that will curve up and down across the screen. Then, in his fourth phase, he'll fall off of the horse and become a merry-go-round in the background, while the roller coaster comes by much faster, and he'll chuck carnival penguins at you to throw baseballs at you. Overall, a great boss. It has some good music, good phases, and it will only take number 9. That just really shows how amazing all Cuphead bosses are. 8. Werner Worman. Werner Worman is probably the most charming boss on this list, being a rat that speaks in a German accent and has made all of the different weapons you're fighting him with, like the tin can tank he's fighting you in. In the first phase, he'll use a variety of attacks, including rushing at you in that tank, bombs that when they hit the ground they'll split into 2 that will go across the floor, and a catapult which will launch various different items. Once you've damaged him enough, he'll go into his second phase where he'll be sitting on a chair that has a flamethrower, and it has 2 different levels, and you have to be on the level that he's not flamethrowing right now. Then, in the final phase, a cat will eat him and will attack you using its paw, where you have to go to one side of the screen, and dead rat ghosts that it'll spit out of its mouth and chuck balls at you. And then in the end, when you beat him, it's found that he is actually the one controlling the cat, and it was all according to plan. A very cool and charming boss. 7. Grimm Matchstick. Grimm Matchstick probably takes second for charming, because he is a dragon that doesn't actually mean to hurt you and just wants to play. In his first phase, he'll use beams from his eyes, chuck fireballs at you, and use his tails to try and stab you. The most unique elements about this fight is that you are on clouds moving sideways, and if you fall, you'll take damage, and the clouds are on different levels. So you have to be constantly moving while trying to deal damage to the boss. On the second phase, he'll open his mouth and little fireballs will come out and occasionally jump at you. This is great because some of the fireballs can be a little bit unpredictable, which is really good because it adds some unpredictability to the fight. And in his final phase, he will grow 3 heads, and a nice touch is that the background will turn rainy. And their attacks consist of a flamethrower that the middle head does, and shooting projectiles that are annoying because if you hit them, they will turn into 4 more mini projectiles. One thing to note about the dragon is, while expert ranking it, you will die a lot. It is a tough boss, maybe even the hardest in Cuphead. And even though in Cuphead you die a lot, you will die even more in this fight. But overall, an amazing boss. It will take number 7. 6. Dr. Kyle's Robot. Dr. Kyle's Robot is generally considered to be one of the hardest bosses in the game, but honestly, I think some people are just a little bit weak. But I find him honestly one of the best, too. In the first phase, he will be inside his robot, and you'll have to destroy 3 parts. His laser, the chest, and the lower torso. Once you destroy all 3 parts, the heart will come out, and you'll have to damage it some more, while all of the other parts still attack you. The best part about this first phase is when you destroy, for instance, the laser, a new attack will replace it. For instance, when you destroy the laser, it is replaced by the robot shooting nuts and bolts at you. In the second phase, the robot will fly around the top and bottom of the screen while you have to damage it a bit more. Kind of more of an intermission phase in the last phase, plus it is skippable if you just shoot a bomb at the right time. In the last phase, it is a little bit of a bullet hell because you are dodging a bunch of bullets that the professor throws at you while avoiding these electric walls. I never found it that bad, although it is quite long. So for that, Dr. Cal's robot will take number 6. Number 5, Calamaria. Calamaria is a sea monster, and in her first phase, she will use a variety of attacks, including sending pufferfish up, using pirate ghosts, and a seahorse that spits water, as well as a few others. This first phase is really cool in my opinion because she can combo attacks on you, which makes it different and interesting every time. And it's the best phase of the fight in my opinion. On the second phase, she'll get bitten by eels and turn into Medusa. The eels will shoot little projectiles at you, and when there's like 10 eels, it's almost impossible to dodge because she will be freezing you every once in a while with her Medusa gaze. And you have to mash buttons to get out. And in her final phase, it turns into this long winding corridor where you have to still avoid the freezing mechanic while avoiding a couple other projectiles, as well as the top and the bottom of this cave you are in. It's a fun plane boss, and the second best plane boss, in my opinion, on this list. 4, Phantom Express. The Phantom Express is a unique format of a boss where you have to fight 4 different mini-bosses that are all part of the train. The first ghost mini-boss shoots eyeballs at you, but the unique part about this entire fight is that you're on a cart that you must parry the sides of to move around, but there are pumpkins and a couple other things dropping parryable projectiles that will move the cart, making it unpredictable. The second phase, a giant Skeletor ghost will slam his hands down on 2 out of the 3 spaces your cart can be, and you must position yourself under the head to avoid getting slammed by the hands. The third phase are 2 lollipop ghosts that will shoot, I think it's lightning, down onto you. And they have 2 separate hitboxes that you must damage. And then the final section, and I would say the best in my opinion, it's running along and you have to parry its tail to open up its middle heart, while a bunch of projectiles swarm around you and you must damage the heart. And it has great music, it's a fun boss, and each phase is pretty great, so it'll take number 4. Number 3, the Devil. The Devil is the final boss you face, and a lot of people say he's a bit underwhelming, but he has many attacks and his phases have progressed quite well, and replay value on this fight is quite incredible. In the first phase, he can use a variety of attacks, including clapping his hands at you, forcing you to jump, creating a variety of pink and blue projectiles, attaching his head and detaching his head and jumping at you, and becoming a snake-like creature, rushing in from the side of the screen. In his second phase, he'll jump out of his skin and go down the hole, where you follow him to presumably hell. In this phase, he's still in the background, but his hitboxes are on his eyes now, and his attacks consist of you having to stand on 5 platforms, while poker chips fall onto these 5 platforms, forcing you to jump to the other ones. He'll create bombs and axes from his eyes and ears, but then in the third phase, he'll get angry and some demons will come and shoot projectiles at you from the side of the screen. You can damage them to get rid of them, but they will come back after a certain amount of times. To make room for the demons, the amount of platforms has reduced to 3. Then, in the final phase, he'll start crying, parryable tears, but you only have 1 platform now, and you have to jump around to parry the tears to avoid the falling poker chips. Overall, an amazing boss and a great way to end the game. Taking number 3. Number 2. Jimmy the Great. Jimmy the Great is probably my favorite boss on this list for a few reasons, including that he has the most phases, including a secret phase. You're also in a plane for this entire fight, and it is the best plane boss in the game. In his first phase, he'll give you 1 of 3 possible outcomes from a chest. He will give you cat projectiles, swords that will fly at you, or the cursed treasure chest where he shoots a bunch of projectiles at you. In his second phase, it's very unique where he'll be a bunch of pillars that you have to shoot 1 of 5 spots to damage, and then fly through that hole, while there are flying saws around the screen trying to attack you. In his third phase, a sarcophagus will come out and shoot little ghosts and little planets at you while you're damaging it. This phase, I would say, is the weakest just because there's an easy way to cheese it, but still an amazing phase. Then, in the fourth phase, he'll make a marionette out of Cuphead that'll shoot bullets at you, while the genie's hat shoots little bullets at you as well. And then in the final phase, the genie will become giant, firing eye-beams from his eyes and using the 3 pyramids around him to shoot lasers at you. The amount of stuff you have to avoid and the music and the entire boss makes this entire fight very fun, but yet there's still one more better one. Number 1, King Dice. King Dice is the best boss by basically a landslide. When I count King Dice, I count all of his minions, which you might not consider fair, but I consider it pretty fair. So the whole idea of King Dice is that you have to roll a dice to progress on a board, fighting at least 3 mini-bosses out of 9. And once you progress to the end of the board, you get to fight King Dice himself. The only bad aspect of this boss is the King Dice fight itself, since he only has 1 attack. But even then, I wouldn't say that's bad, only average. Talking about each mini-boss would take too long, but most, if not all, are fun, and it's nice how they get harder as you go along. The board has a nice sense of progression, and it tests how well you're able to roll the dice, which makes it fun to improve and figure out what mini-bosses you're good at. In the final phase, King Dice will throw a bunch of cards from his hand, and you'll have to parry the heart cards and the pink cards while avoiding the ones that are unparryable as well, while shooting King Dice. One thing to note about the King Dice fight is that it can be very long. I'm playing this at about triple time speed, and it's still taking a while. But sometimes S-ranking it, or just getting a good score on expert or normal, can take a long time and be a bit annoying. But if you like to fight, then that's not a problem, obviously. Overall, the music is amazing, the gameplay is amazing, and the design is amazing. And for that, King Dice will take number 1. Overall, no Cuphead boss, in my opinion, is bad. They're just so all infused with creativity and amazingness that I cannot truly consider any bad. Even the worst boss on this list, Goopy Le Grande, it's a great beginner boss with great music. And if you enjoyed this tier list, thank you so much for watching, and if you would like me to rank the DLC bosses for Cuphead, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.